This is The Art of Startup War, and I am your sensei, Brian McMahon. Now, in Season 1 and 2, I got inside the minds of startup investors. In Season 3, I brought in entrepreneurs to share their startup journey. Here, in Season 4, we combine both, so you can hear investors critique the investment value proposition of individual companies. You're going to hear how investors make decisions to invest in startups, what makes a great entrepreneur, and how billion-dollar companies are built. So tune in every Tuesday, 10 a.m. on all the major platforms. You can empower your tribe by sharing the podcast, and remember to subscribe, rate, review, and leave us a comment. Good morning, it's 10 o'clock, it's Tuesday, it's Brian, it's Expert Dojo. We are back and we are speaking with another amazing entrepreneur starting a phenomenal business, which this time is going to be in the financial services space. So Anand, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So Pulse360.
Yes.
What happened? In a good way.
In a good way. I was responsible for doing a lot of mundane work for financial advisors, and I realized that with my coding skills, I can automate a lot of that. So I did that exactly about a few years ago, actually, for a smaller practice. I got moved over to a bigger practice as a COO, and seems like that they had the same problems. So that's when I decided a couple of years ago to say, okay, let me start developing something for the financial advisors to help them communicate with their clients and show their value.
Because this is actually, it's a sector which is ripe for being able to get efficiencies. Because it's not that it's a traditional or an old-fashioned sector. I think there's like a lot of moons colliding which make it hard for that sector. You've got folks who are maybe a little bit older or a little bit more traditional. You have very regulatory intensive industry, which means they have to show a lot of documents. So even if newer folks come in and they want to change, it's very hard to change it.
Yes.
And then also you have very large organizations where you've got many, many layers of people that need to be able to see what's happening underneath it. So I think after years and years and years and years, where the focus became more about let's grow users, it wasn't so much about let's build in efficiencies. And my feeling is now your timing is very good for this because now they have to make more profits.
Yes. Yes. Margin compression is actually a real pain for all the financial advisors because the efficiencies are not there utilizing old technology.
I love that phrase, by the way. I'm going to use that at home. So rather than just saying we have no money, I'm going to say, listen, we're dealing with a margin compression right now. Just get over it, okay? For crying out loud.
Yeah. I mean, when I was speaking with John, we're in a time capsule with the technology. There's lots of new players that are coming on and addressing different elements of the financial advisory business. What we are doing is actually bridging the gap from an advisor to the client. Not a lot of folks are addressing that. In fact, I would say you could probably count on one hand. So a simple example of what we're really doing is if you meet with a client as an advisor and you discuss complex investments, insurance, whatnot, once the client leaves, there's no communication about what happened during the meetings. Some advisors will do follow-ups, but they end up taking a lot of time. Regulatory pressures means we have to, whatever we put down in writing has to make sense, right, to the clients. So now you're tying up a senior staff like me or the advisor themselves. You can't have an intern draft a follow-up based on what your meeting notes were. So that's where we're coming in and saying.
And that's why, because the law says you can't do that?
No, it's just the wordings, and there's reputation risk as well, right? How you communicate. You need to get life insurance, 20-year term policies, and $1 million, for example, and why, right? Junior staffs won't have the experience to properly word that. So usually senior people or advisors have to just do that.
And they'll go away, they'll work out a proposal, which I've seen some of those proposals. They could be 20 pages, right? Or 25 pages.
Absolutely.
They're huge.
Absolutely. So this whole idea, and I'll give you an example of where this comes in. So we served a client. We prepared a retirement plan for them, which was 20, 30 pages, whatnot. The clients came in and the husband's saying, he's terminally ill. So all of a sudden, we had to change the whole meeting to now say the wife is going to be okay. The son was there, and so we did that during the meeting. But afterwards, what we sent them back with was another 40-page document. Versus had we just put that in a bullet format in an email saying, you're going to be okay, here's why, here's what you have. But doing that takes 20, 30 minutes of an advisor's time. Usually they're meeting 20 meetings a week. So what we have done is saying, hey, let's put all that wording that we're going to use across our client base into a software, and repeatedly now we can pick and choose different advice we've given to different clients and create the document.
Okay. And how hard is it to create what you've done?
The traditional method is to use a Microsoft Word or Outlook email. You open up a blank, canvas and start typing or writing. So it's going to take you 20, 30 minutes just
But
sitting
they
there.
wouldn't have a template, would they not? That they just copy and paste
So
stuff
some
out
of some of the advisors that I've met now have 5 or 6 different Word templates, and you still have to go in and find just the right thing. What we have done is put it in one place where now you just start typing, and all the different advice that come up with matching that what you're typing will bubble up, and you just pick one and add it in. We can do this in less than 5 minutes. So.
Okay, and is there a machine learning built into this?
So
Or artificial
machine learning,
intelligence, or
yeah.
how
So
does it work?
I met with a machine learning person, especially when it comes to natural language processing. What we need to do is actually have 2 to 3 years worth of traction and data collected, because our language that we use is very unique and different. But once we get to that space with the different advisors, then we'll be able to apply NLP to this.
Got you.
So
So, and then for other people looking to build what you've built, what would they
Sure.
need to do?
Well, they'd have to have obviously the experience of knowing how the staff and all of them work. Most of the technology firms that are addressing our fields, they're serving the advisors for all the different risks, investment portfolio, putting together, trading, all of that. But then they don't know what the staff actually end up doing, and we bang our heads against all the different technologies. So they really need to come up and look from the bottom up, saying, okay, what is it that we need to do for these people to make them more efficient, and why? So, in our situation, can somebody come and copy our software? It's been a paranoid thing for me for a long time. So what I'm now looking at doing is partnering with different content providers to allow us to add in different charts into what we're building and make that further.
So make the software better and
Yes.
stronger,
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
people can't actually come in and do that.
Right. Yeah. There's a roadmap of 10 different modules that are going to be highly valuable to advisors that we've already outlined, that I already know every piece of what's going to go into that. So that's how we're going to try and be ahead.
Okay. And tell me about your journey so far in getting this built, because this is obviously a brave thing to start.
Yes. Yes. I started about a couple years ago, and I made several mistakes, partly by myself, because when I built the original version, it was in Excel for a smaller advisor. And so I went in with this saying, I want it in Excel again. And I was pushing Excel so far that I reached out to several developers, and all of them I hired several of them. All of them kept promising, saying, yep, they can do it, until I realized I'm just pushing Excel way too far, and I needed to listen to some of my other developer friends to say, let's use web technologies. So I started about a couple years ago, but almost 6 months of this went down that way. And then I ended up finding a co-founder, Jamie, who
He's your CTO.
he's my CTO. He's a developer. He has 18 years of experience in developing, sports betting software and financial software out in UK. And I just from one phone call, he understood me and I understood him. And within 2 days, he had built a framework of something that when I looked at it, I'm like, that's it. This is the direction we're going.
Okay.
So we started that pretty much not the previous Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving before. And now we have a product that we're looking to beta launch shortly and then fully launch in April, May is what we're targeting right now.
And what's your expectation? And by the way, you've done this all with your own money, right?
Everything has been on my own money.
Brave man.
My
supporting family.
My daughter's education fund is liquidated.
For you.
I have no more retirement. Nothing.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm looking at her piggy bank.
By
as
the way,
next.
I avoided the guilt of doing that by putting nothing into my son's fund in the first place, because it's good. Because that way, I don't feel bad about having to steal from it in the future.
Yeah, well, I wasn't that insightful. I did have an account, obviously coming from the financial advisory world, so I did have an account, but that's gone now.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, every piece of this has been bootstrapped completely. So
and then as you see the picture unfolding in the future,
yes.
and you were going to paint a path of perfection, what would that look like over the next 2 or 3 years?
I want to have financial advisors coming up and saying thank you for what we have built. Not because of ego reasons, but because that will tell me that we're doing a good job for them and they're serving their clients a lot easier and efficiently. So a lot of the technologies and roadmap that we have planned is to cut down on the mundane stuff that their staff are banging their heads against and making that easier.
So you're going to have other products on the roadmap as well?
Yes. Yeah. We're starting with this, and what we're trying to do right now is build partnerships with content providers. So, for example, and I'm just throwing this out. I'm not in conversations with any of these, but Morningstar, for example, will have research reports and things. There's a risk analysis program that will have the risk profiles, where we want to be able to bring all that into our software. Mm-hmm. That's the way we want to try and integrate. Everybody's talking about integration in a different way, as far as, we just have one app and now I can see this. Well, we want to take it one step further where they can actually easily communicate to the clients, because at the end of the day, that's what matters, right? The communication to the clients and putting that together. So that's what our focus is. So everything we're driving is towards making sure they can deliver to their clients, which will make their practices a lot more efficient.
And then, so if you're gonna describe the brand of how you impact people, actually, if you're going to describe the brand of how you make financial advisors feel, how would you describe your brand?
I would say I would like to be perceived as, wow, I did not know this was possible. Thank you.
So is it about avoidance of the mundane?
It's
not avoidance is a bad word. Is it about overcoming the mundane?
It's about marrying technology to really make progress in the business. And obviously mundane is one element of this, that we have a lot of those, but it's just making technology work for the advisors and their teams to help them deliver a better service overall.
So it's funny, as a buddy of mine who owns a company called Not Impossible Labs here, mm-hmm. and they do incredible humanitarian things around the world.
Sure.
Totally, I'm taking a sidebar here for a second,
sure.
right? But for him, their phrase, there was these kids in Rwanda that they're working with who've had their arms blown off, and they know, based on what they did, they can build a prosthetic limb for about $130, right? Over in Rwanda for this kid. And then so they built one, they did it on a 3D printer. The kid could actually eat food with his hands with his new prosthetic limbs for the very first time. And Not Impossible Labs' whole principle is the absurdities of what's not possible. So I think even a little bit with you, it's about the absurdities of the mundane. Because there are so many mundane tasks that have to be done by financial advisors that are not serving their clients, that are definitely not serving them, and actually are almost like an anchor around their legs, mm-hmm. because they're continually having to refer back to them every time they have interactions with those customers.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's about saying, enough. This is the time when we actually cut this down. So how much do you think, firstly, how much of their time do they spend on the mundane? And then number two, how much can we cut that down?
So just doing a follow-up letter or an email, and now I have checked this against 30 or 40 different advisors. Usually they're spending 20, 30 minutes. And if they're meeting on average 20 meetings a week, which is, if you're a successful advisor, that's pretty much standard, 15 to 20 appointments, you're looking at almost 400 hours a year that we give back just with our software, just the first thing what we've done, right? So that's a significant savings for them to say, let's focus on more growth-oriented things or spend more time with family rather than at weekends working away doing summary letters or follow-up emails and things of that
Okay.
sort.
And then talk a little bit about the money that you intend to raise and how you intend to raise it and what that money is going to be used for.
Sure.
And then talk about the traction of the company that's going to go alongside that.
Sure. Our first, what we're raising is $250,000. That's based on a lean calculation in my mind, in a sense that I'm not going to hire a team of 50. I'm going to do a lot of work myself in the beginning and hire a couple of strategic players that we need. I'm hoping with that fund, we'll build enough traction to then go ahead and raise with institutional investors, where now we're also in a stronger position. So an institutional investor can't just, come in and say, okay, we're going to give you the money, but we'll take 75% of your company, right? So for that reason, I'm raising smaller, so that it puts us in a better position and we get less diluted over time. With the $250,000, what we expect to generate is about $200,000 in monthly recurring revenue in about a year's time. That's
very aggressive.
That's about 800. That's about 800 advisors. So, from a numbers perspective, when you look at that, it's not that great. We're not going after trying to get 10,000 in the first year. Our aim is to.
Well, the revenue is still aggressive though, because if you can get to $200,000 in revenue, that pretty much lines up your seed round.
Sure.
And puts you in a very, very good position to be able to get your Series A after that.
Right. So we're actually in conversations with an enterprise client that we're going through the IT security and checks of that sort, but we'll do a pilot program for them. What I have done is actually met with a lot of the advisors that are part of the enterprise and showed the software and what it can do for their practices. They've all loved it, and they've sent emails up to the executive channels saying you need to, have a look at this. So we target about 500 advisors just out of that one enterprise client. They have obviously lots more advisors, but conservatively speaking, in the first 12 months is what we are targeting 500 out of them. So there'd be about 300 that we'll go after from smaller advisors.
Very, very good. So I want to, just before we go forward to what's going to happen, I just want to go back a little bit. Just talk to me personally about some of the difficult aspects of starting a business from the beginning, especially when you're not, look, you and me are not 22, right? So especially when you're starting with a family, which I think makes a huge difference because, look, starting a business on my own, that's fine. I got to not eat today. It's no worries. Like I didn't have to eat yesterday, right? I could have an egg, right? But I kind of know where to stay today. No problem. I got a car. Nobody's judging me because they don't know. But when you have a family, it's different.
It is.
So,
it is.
And the life decisions become more apparent to kind of everybody around you. So we just talk a little bit about that decision because it was a pretty brave decision to make.
It is. I'm thankful for my wife for supporting me. She sees the belief that I have in this, and she knows, the impact it will make for obviously financially for us. But she also knows the other side as well. We're not young, as you mentioned, right? I have a mortgage, I have a car payment, I have a little 5-year-old daughter. So it was tough to kind of make that decision to tell my parents about it. It wasn't so difficult for me and my wife because we know that if I put in 200% into this will lead us, and make us successful and have an impact in the industry. Ultimately, that's what's driving me, is to make that impact in the financial community. So for us together in our small nucleus, me, my wife, and my daughter, was an easier decision. It was much tougher with my parents who, are older and come from a traditional thought process like, wait a minute, you're
giving up your job.
You have a good paying job. What are you doing? And in fact, some of my friends
like you got
also,
a really good boat and what you want to swim over to that dinghy over there that you can't see.
Yeah. It's some other people, when they look at it, they're like, wow, you're giving up a amazing six-figure income job for nothing. So, it's tough when you have a paycheck withdrawal symptoms, right? It happens, you
That's my
know.
other good one. Yeah.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, the Black Friday, this one that just passed, I always buy something on Black Friday, and this one was like, okay, I have no income coming in, so no.
Yes.
So it's tough, but I have full belief in it, and I think that's what's driving me. And
Yeah.
so,
And your reason for doing this is actually is a blessing for you, because none of us live for salaries. Like, nobody wants to get to the end of their life and say, "Oh, I did really well. I managed to keep a job all the way through." There's no purpose in that. Like, we all know that if we're going to talk about the things that are really important in life, it comes to joy with family, it comes to religion with a lot of people, it comes to health, and it comes to purpose. Like, that's it. Everything else is merely a funnel to get you there, whether it's a salary or whether it's something else. And the hard things with salaries is that it's almost on that side of it, it's a life of sacrifice, because you've sacrificed all of the great things that you could have done in your life so that others around you could be good. Now, that in its own way has its own noble purpose, but it's friggin' depressing, because life is long to go through an entire life of sacrifice. So to be able to follow purpose and to be able to say, there is something great in my life that I can do, and I can be successful at this, is phenomenal. And it
no,
ticks all of the boxes.
absolutely. I think that's driving me a lot, especially the impact. I mean, this whole thing started when I looked at myself and what I can give back to our community, the financial advisor community. Um, I was a coder before. I started when I was 13. I sold my little software, sold in a quotes, because I actually sold it to get a job at a video rental store in Africa. But anyways, so I know what technology can do, and I know my experience in the financial advisory world. So I want to give back to that community and say, okay, let's take away some of the pain that we all suffer, and we just are going about it because we don't think there's a better solution. There is a better solution to a lot of the technology issues and mundane stuff that we're doing. Jim Rohn, I came across a couple of years ago. Phenomenal, changed my life.
Good speaker.
Changed my life. I mean, that's how I started. Like, when I started hearing him, and I'm like, I think I want to scale myself and multiply myself as far as my experience is concerned and the technology stuff. And how can I do that better to all advisors that everybody benefits? And so that's when I decided to jump with both feet in.
Yeah, and obviously it's the tough times, like you said, those Black Fridays where you gotta be, the only job of an early stage entrepreneur is not to die today. That's our job. Our job is to make it through in the very early stages while you're building the product and you're pulling it together, is to make sure that I have enough money coming in this month that I make it through to next month, or even that I have enough money coming through this afternoon to make it home this evening.
Yes.
Everything is about moving those numbers around while at the same time managing the resources as best as you can so that you're moving forward. We always have to be moving forward. So the CTO was a big, big decision. So you and I are talking about us potentially investing in you.
Sure.
Your CTO is a huge part of that.
Yes.
Because if you hadn't got a CTO, I would have loved the fact that you're persevering. I would have loved the fact that you're trying your ass off. I would have been scared about the fact that sometimes, even though we're running really fast, if it's pitch dark, we're not necessarily running in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And if we think we have a flashlight but we don't, then it's even worse, right? And that's what I mean. Sometimes we will look at the user experience and the technology and think we can do it ourselves. So talk to me a little bit about your CTO and why he became so important in the team.
Yeah, Jamie was, when I got introduced to him, it changed everything for me, like you said. Because after the first phone call, he understood what I wanted, my craziness, and delivered a bare bone framework in a couple of days for me to kind of look at it. I'm like, wow, that's it. And then we started working together. What I decided to do actually was initially pay him. Because I had such bad experience with previous freelance and other coders, I decided to pay him. And when I saw that we're working together well, and he is just phenomenal. I was giving his wife an example. I said, if I tell Jamie to put a CD player in a car for me, he not only does that, but he's going to wire up the speakers, balance the sound, insulate the car, all of that. And I'm like, that's like 10 steps ahead of what
And
I
put a
was
pillow
already
behind your head,
yeah,
right, while you're
yeah.
driving.
He's already thinking 10 steps ahead of what I was asking. And that to me was a moment where I'm like, yeah, he's the right person for me. So I ran out of money to pay him right during Thanksgiving, and I flew out to London on a whim since he's there and met with him. And I said, look, I don't have any more money to pay, but here's the dream. Here's the vision. You want to go with me? So the next day we met, and he's like, yeah, let's do it. So we've been working together, and he's phenomenal. Like what you said, you absolutely need a CTO. More importantly, you need a CTO that understands the craziness that comes with, the person that has the original idea, right? Because I keep adding features and whatnot, but he knows how to take that 10 steps forward. And that's, I think, very, very beneficial.
Excellent. So what comes next?
So I actually just secured yesterday a DevOps team out of Argentina. For the enterprise client, we're going to need to have that in place. And yesterday I was able to secure as an equity deal with them that they're going to come on board and help us with this business, which is going to be huge.
Man, you're stretching that dollar, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to, right? I want this to be
And by the way,
successful.
sorry, for anybody listening, just in case, there are two things very important about this podcast that you won't generally see. Number one, you're speaking to real people who are going through probably the most difficult and brave journey that they will go through in their entire lives. So believe it. This is so unbelievably hard because something new is being created. And number two, like when I have these conversations, we're in the final stages of diligence with Anand, and we're looking at Pulse360 as an investment. So for us, I'll say it to everybody who's listening, the same as I said it to you before. Like we're gonna wait to hear the feedback from somebody who's in the space, who's gonna say to us, "We need this." And then once we have that feedback, then we like you. We like you. We like what you're building. We like what you're doing. I like your tenacity. I like everything that you have going for you. So this is not a random, I just want to find out about you and tell the world about your plight. This is about, we're looking for great startups that are going to grow, that can turn into multi-$100 million companies. And we're looking for the key formulas that makes those people become what they are.
Right. Yeah.
So it's good to have you in the fridge.
No, thank you. Appreciate it. So I will add from one more thing from a traction perspective. We're looking to, and what you said, what's next? We're looking to launch beta hopefully next week, otherwise the week after.
That's what I was going to ask you.
I have about 4 advisors that are waiting. In fact, one of them has decided to invest and pay the monthly subscription fee for us. So that's going to be
How
awesome.
much is he going to invest?
He's coming in at 25 and may go up to 50, actually.
Well done. Well done. This is it. This is it. It's real now.
Yep.
Before you were prophesizing what's going to happen, but this is the real thing. So this next stage is a wonderful stage and it's a scary stage.
Yes.
It's a wonderful stage because every single thing that you've told everybody for the most important part of your life, maybe, which is this whole new rebirth of you, is now going to happen exactly as you said it is, or not exactly as you said. Now, as an investor, I don't expect it to happen as you said it is, because it doesn't happen like that way for any of us. It just doesn't. But sometimes there's an incredible surprise and it happens more, but you're inventing something new that's never been out there before.
Yes.
So tell me how you're going to mitigate if it's not perfect.
Well,
so you're going to hit midway through February 2020.
Yeah.
And this podcast might be out just around that type of period, but you're going to hit that kind of period. And then you're going to come out and it's going to go to the financial advisors and maybe they have some questions, some other bits and pieces. Talk to me about, I'm very close to investing you, so I'm hoping that the plan A is perfect. But talk to me about the plan B and the plan C.
As far as the market demand is concerned, is what you're thinking?
Yeah, and product development, market demand, what you do.
Yeah, so from a product development perspective, I've learned the lesson last year where I kept adding features because I didn't think it was perfect. So I myself have a high standard because I did the work. But I've stopped that. What I'm doing now is actually adding to a backlog of features, and we have a record we keep So anything that comes up from a product development perspective, if it's critical, obviously we have to look at that and fix that right away. But if it's something that's a good feature, we're going to look at it from a perspective of, is this just for one person versus 100 practices, and is this going to make a meaningful difference? So we'll analyze those. So I'm going to first triage
I think that's
it,
very smart, by the way. Like to use it as a petri dish where you can start, because the problem is if there's so many features, it's very hard to know which ones are the good ones and the bad ones, which ones
Right.
people like or they don't like, because normally we only use 5-6% of the features that we have in any device, whatever that device is.
Yep.
So by being able to keep them there and then add them in and take them out and see how people react to them, it means that you can actually push their focus to it.
Right. From a market perspective, the challenge, I believe, what's going to happen is, and what we've already heard several times is, it does this integrate with our CRMs, and we're working towards trying to, part of the raise of the money is to bring on a developer so we can actually build on integrations with at least 2 other CRMs that are in our business, Redtail and Wealthbox. Salesforce, we've already sort of built out the integrations. We have to test it out. So that's the biggest challenge from a market perspective. If people are going to say, wait a minute, you don't have the integrations with the 2 CRMs.
Yeah.
So,
and it's good that you're aware of that. How long do you think that will take, and how much do you think it will cost?
I think
because people will want it, right? Everybody wants to have their CRM integrated with their communication.
Absolutely. So we've already built the whole framework to actually accommodate the different APIs. So it's not going to cost us any much more, maybe 2 months of coding time, I would think, and testing time now, just because we've already built it for Salesforce. So if that framework is already there, adding on Wealthbox, which is a more advanced API, and then Redtail, should relatively be, not that long. I've spoken with Jamie about that, and he agrees that probably 2 months of work from a developer perspective to actually iron that out. So we're not going to launch until we have that, because that's going to be, our Achilles heel right off the bat if we don't have that.
Very good. So you launch, you get 200,000 in monthly recurring revenue by December or by January. What happens then? Paint me a picture of what you're going to grow to in the future. We're going to manifest this. You want to do it Jim Rohn style? We'll do it Jim Rohn style. We're going to manifest what you're going to create and what it's going to be worth. And then we're going to work our way backwards based on the valuation of the company, and then also based on the amount of money that you have to raise.
Sure. Well, like I mentioned earlier, we have about 10 other modules. I'm going to look at which ones are the ones that are going to be more impactful and move them ahead in the queue to develop once we reach the milestones. And from a market perspective, we want to start getting more and more smaller advisors as well as larger enterprise clients. What most people, I was told several times that you can't go after 2 different markets, small as well as enterprise. Well, what most people don't realize about our industry is that while there's enterprise players, all the advisors that are under that, they operate as small businesses themselves.
Of course they do, yeah.
So all we need to do is, get the blessings from a compliance on IT security, and now we have, basically everybody is a small, business in that sense. So our focus is to try and get second and third enterprise clients going right away in the year 2021.
And what can this be worth?
Well, 1,000 advisors is probably $3 million in revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So
per
practice.
Okay.
So
per year, per month?
Per year.
Okay.
Yeah. So enterprise clients, for example, LPL has almost 18,000 advisors. Edward Jones, similar numbers. Ameriprise, about 8,000 to 9,000 advisors. So when you start looking at those, Commonwealth, Raymond James, I've already started all the conversations with the different people from the field. I'm doing it a little bit differently. I'm not going to the top executives right off the bat. I'm going to the people that are actually using it and that are producers, that are financial advisors that are successful in those companies, getting their buy-ins and having them, tell their executives that, hey, it's time to pay attention to this new technology.
So how many financial advisors do we have? Maybe a couple of 100,000?
In the U.S., about 300,000 in the U.S. Canada, UK, and Australia are different markets that we have looked at. I've spoken with a couple of Canadian advisors, and they see it for them to be usable as well. But we're first going to obviously target the U.S. market to try and gain as much of a foothold as
Of
possible.
course, and then learn it afterwards. So the company has the ability to be able to make a couple of $100 million a year in
Yes.
revenue by the sounds of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with all the different modules we're going to create that adds to the monthly. Absolutely.
Okay, very good. So at this stage, listen, I like you,
Thank you.
like the company. I like what you're creating. I think this is as a first product to come out with, very strong. I'm impressed that you've managed to get the CTO. I believe you're going to be able to execute beyond this first round into the next round afterwards. I think if we can get it up to $200,000-$300,000 a month in revenue, you put yourself in a very good position to be able to get your Series A, which is the next holy grail.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get your Series A, I don't want to say it's downhill, but it's yours to lose.
Got it.
At your Series A, because you have a company that can actually be profitable,
Mm-hmm.
interestingly,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to one that's going to burn cash all of the time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was given some investors have told me to do a freemium model in our situation, and I looked at that very, very in depth. And what I recognize is that most advisors, and I've checked with all the advisors that I've now talked with, most of them said that no, they'll easily pay $250 a month on the lower side of this scale. So why give it away for free? Now, what I am doing though, which is different, is we have faith in the software and the efficiency it's going to bring. So we're giving a guarantee of 90 days for them to get their money back. That will take them, they can go in and now start using it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not producing the value they think, money back.
Okay. So give me a prediction. Tell me a year. Tell me how much you're going to sell for. If you're going to be acquired or if you're going to IPO. And tell me how much.
I believe we're probably looking at IPO.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of the previous firms that have come before us in the financial advisory fields. They're usually going for $40 or $50 million. And I believe our revenues will, I am expecting in year 5, for example, to have about 20,000 advisors generating, about $60-70 million. Depends, of course, when we add new modules and add that.
It's a high percentage of the total amount of advisors in the US, though. It's about 8% or so, right?
It's about 3% overall. But you also have to look at from an enterprise client's perspective. We're already in talks with one. I've already started the conversations with the others, and the expectation is, if for example, an enterprise client has 10,000 advisors, maybe 50% of them will use this.
Got you. Okay.
Because they have to document their notes.
Yeah.
They all want to elevate that experience. So,
yeah.
And right now, using Microsoft Word and email is just an inefficient use of their time.
Very good. Okay, so give me the numbers. IPO, we're going to IPO when? Remember, we're manifesting this.
Probably, I would say 12 to 15 years.
Okay.
Just from being realistic, looking at, all the previous IPOs, everybody takes 10 years at least,
They
right?
do take 10 years, but you have to find a way to do it quicker.
Sure.
And you got to find a way to do it quicker because nobody likes that. The fact that it takes 10, 12 years is not a happy feeling for the VCs.
I see.
So all of the VCs, actually much of the talk right now is about the fact that everybody's talking about these great companies that are going to blast through. But actually it takes so long that we're lucky if we're still alive by the time the thing makes it through, right?
I was basing that number on just looking at the historical.
Look at you. Always remember, if you're going to manifest it, you want to manifest it on you. So it's based on how long does it take you to get your revenues to $30 or $40 million a year, so $3 million a month. And then that positions you in a place that you can IPO for how many $100 million? I think with 30, 40, it puts you with a couple of $100 million now.
Yeah. So I would say we're probably looking at year 4 and 5 where we start hitting the 40 to 50 million, and then the end of year 5 will probably be at around 70 million.
Okay, so you heard it here. It is going to be in this decade. There is no 2030. There's only 2020. And in this case, we're talking about 2026 or 2027 where we file our S1.
Yep.
Okay, that's it. So listen, it's been great talking with you. I do want you to share on the podcast email
Sure.
I want you to share a website. Remember, we have entrepreneurs who are listening to us. And I want for all of the entrepreneurs listening, just for you to understand, what I'm talking about here, where we manifest what we're going to do and when, it is really important to milestone based on you knowing what's going to happen. Now, we never really know, so it's an unfair question, right, that I put to you. But we do definitely want to track it out so that as we learn, we can amend that tracking and we can keep that milestone plan going forward. I believe that you're either going to be very, very right or not so right, right? If you're very, very right, I believe that timeline of 6 to 7 years is a very, very good timeline. You can hit it. If you're not so right, it's going to take a little bit more time to get the actual right product fit that we need, but we're still going to power forward on it. Like I said, I like you. I like your company. We're in late stages. It's likely we'll do it. So
thank you.
Everything to gain. But share with everybody before we go your email address, website, and just maybe a parting thought for entrepreneurs everywhere that they can learn from your journey.
Sure. So you can reach me at Anand at Pulse360.com. That's ANAND at Pulse360.com. You can go on Pulse360.com to read more about what we're doing. And as far as parting thoughts for entrepreneurs, it is not easy. It's going to be challenging. So if you're going to think about doing a business, have a very, very strong belief, because there's going to be lots of headwinds. And if you don't have that strong belief, you're going to pack it up and go. And, so if you have that strong belief, then just go for that. And then secondly, for entrepreneurs, what I do is every single day, it doesn't happen, but what I try to practice is every single day, I'm trying to do one thing that will 10x my business sometime in the future. So we get tied up in a lot of mundane stuff ourselves with entrepreneurs. But find that one thing every single day. If it's an email, if you want to contact Brian or somebody else that can potentially 10x you. So I'm every single day, that's my goal. Find that one thing that I do, and I do it, and then go forward. So.
Good job. Love it. Listen, it's been a pleasure. It's going to be a pleasure going forward. I have a feeling that yours and my path are going to be entwined for a long time.
Awesome. Would love to. Thank you, Brian, for your help.
And that's a wrap.
Thanks for joining us. If you love the podcast, please empower your circle by sharing these stories. The Art of Startup War is brought to you by Expert Dojo. And remember, we invest in startups, $50,000 checks. Make sure you apply on our site if you are one of those great entrepreneurs looking to bring your company to the next level. As far as the Art of Startup War is concerned, we are back every single Tuesday at 10 a.m. So remember, check out the new episodes. If you want to find out what the investors think, check out season 1 or 2. But make sure you join us every single week.